bathroom, or that maybe the color is use only that bathroom, it kind of speaks to the gravity of,
Right, the gravity, exactly, because it's, you know, if you see by order of the police department, then you know it's not just business establishments that are saying we don't want you in our restaurant, or if you are in a restaurant, go sit on that other side. It's people who are supposed to protect you, are, you know, also, you know, formulating this idea to keep people separate, right? Anybody else?
I commented on the second one, and it just made me think of all of them, but how would this make a person feel to see this on a daily basis, this constant reminder that you're inferior and what that does to a human being. But also because I was angry at the people who wrote the second sign. I believe whites is grammatically incorrect with that apostrophe there, so I wrote grammatically incorrect, stupid.
Great observation. Great observation.
Yeah. It made me very angry because I was like, the fact that you wrote this and you can't even write it correctly.
Yes.
So that was my little.
Karen, do you want to talk about the first one since we discussed the other two?
I wrote what is colored, like what really makes a colored person colored. And then for the second one, it's like Spanish or Mexicans. Does that mean like a black person would be allowed? Or am I not allowed because I look Spanish?
Right.
Like, what's going on?
So with all of these ideas that we have, let's try to define what these two things mean. Do you guys think these things are equally the same? Are they separate? What does racism mean?
Well, racism, it's at times people kind of use that interchangeably with prejudice, but I think prejudice is a little different too, because well, when I think about racism, I'm thinking about
That's Blanche's phone.
I'm thinking about the dominant, well, not even the dominant,
The treatment of people, right?
the treatment of people, but I'm also thinking about, because when I think about racism, you only think about racism coming from one
Particular group.
group of people to another group of people. So when I think racism, I don't think African Americans being racist, although they can be racist. I'm thinking about Europeans being racist.
Okay. So how would we define racism? If we were to give it a one sentence or two sentence definition, how would we define that? Because I want you guys to have that. How would we define that? Would we say that it's, Karen?
I think it's more like a misguided belief, a misguided negative belief about another group of people.
Based on
stereotypes.
Based on their race, Joe. Race, that's the key.
Oh yeah, based on race.
Based on their race, right?
Yeah.
So yes.
Or based on what you, she said misguided, right? What you believe, because race is a social construct, right? What is race anyway? So it's, the word racism in itself, race, right? That the whole idea of both words is another means to separate a group of people,
right?
You know, marginalize them.
So just for today's purposes, just for the study of this unit, I want you guys to have a concrete definition of what that is for our purposes, okay? So we're going to define it as poor treatment, judgment, or violence towards a person or group of people. And you should be writing this in your notebooks, please. Based on their race. Okay, so let's move on to the other one. Greta, maybe you could tackle segregation for me. What do you think segregation means?
Well, I think segregation is a result of racism. Segregation is a result of racism that results in, that is the separating of people in all faculties of life, for the most part, based solely on the color of their skin.
Well, let's be
Or
careful how
ethnicity.
we say that, because I think people could be segregated not just because of race.
Oh, that's true. I guess
Right?
I'm thinking of it more so in the terms of To Kill a Mock, or in terms
Right,
of
in
like
terms of
racism,
right.
but like based on
But generally speaking,
differences.
yeah, based on differences, right? Race is one of them, but people are segregated because of their sexuality,
Their gender.
which is sort of different from this. But people can be segregated as a result of racism. It's caused by that. But for a general definition of segregation, you could be segregated for a number of reasons, based on disability, based on your sexuality, and all that stuff. So for now, let's just define it as the separating of people from one group, to another. Okay. So those images that you have there, I just want you to put it away until the end of class. We're going to get back to it in a second. Now we're going to do, as the topic says, we're going to discuss chapter 1 of To Kill a Mockingbird. Instead of doing a traditional reading of it, we're going to do a jigsaw of chapter 1. And I have a model here of what we're going to do, okay? So you're each going to be given a sheet with a task. And these passages, I want one person from out of the group to read each of the passages. You each pick which one you want to do and follow the task under that number. So for example, Blanche, can you read the first one for me that says Maycomb?
Maycomb was an old town. Draw the town of Maycomb. Write a list of things that appear in Maycomb and annotate the passage.
So the first thing that we have here, right, is the quote from your passage. So it's going to coordinate with that. So whatever passage you have, you look for your first line and follow the task that's underneath that, okay? But I want one person to do a read aloud in the group and read all the passages, and then you pick which one you want, and then you follow the task. Here, I have different task sheets here. And these are all stable, but obviously you could, tear them apart. And when you're finished, this is what it's going to look like. And we're going to stick them in Decorator Classroom with it, okay? We're going to put your passage along with whatever you drew and answered underneath that, okay?
Okay. Maycomb was an old town, but it was a tired old town when I first knew it. In rainy weather, the streets turned to red slop. Grass grew on the sidewalks. The courthouse sagged in the square. Somehow it was hotter then. A black dog suffered on a summer's day. Bony mules hitched to hoover carts flicked flies in the sweltering shade of the live oaks on the square. Men's stiff collars wilted by 9 in the morning. Ladies bathed before noon. After their 3 o'clock naps, and by nightfall were life soft tea cakes with frostings of sweat and sweet talcum. People moved slowly then. They ambled across the square, shuffled in and out of the stores around it, took their time about everything. A day was 24 hours long, but seemed longer. There was no hurry, for there was nowhere to go, nothing to buy, and no money to buy it with, nothing to see outside the boundaries of Maycomb County.
I want that one. Sorry. Is that okay? If I claim it? Cool.
When I was almost 6 and Jim was nearly 10, our summertime boundaries within calling distance of Calparina was Miss Henry Lafayette Du Bois' house, 2 doors to the north of us, and the Radley place 3 doors to the south. We never attempted to break them. The Radley place was inhabited by an unknown entity, the mere description of whom was enough to make us behave for days on end. Miss Du Bois was plain hell.
Do you want me to read it or I can take? Okay. I just don't want you to feel like you're like burdened with reading everything. We need you to do something. When my father was admitted to the bar, he returned to Maycomb and began his practice. Maycomb, some 20 miles east of Finch's Landing, was the county seat of Maycomb County. Atticus' office was in the courthouse. Contained little more than a hat rack, a spittoon, a checkerboard, and an unsullied code of Alabama. His first 2 clients were the last 2 persons hanged in Maycomb County.
And since it's only the three of you, don't feel the need to read all, well, maybe you have to read
Oh,
all
okay.
5. I mean, depending on what you want to pick.
Oh, okay.
You may have to read all 5, depending on what you want to pick.
When he was nearly 13, my brother Jem got his arm badly broken at the elbow. When it healed and Jem's fears of never being able to play football were I don't know how to say that word. He was seldom self-conscious about his injury. His left arm was somewhat shorter than his right. When he stood or walked, the back of his hand was at right angles to his body. His thumb parallel to his thigh. He couldn't have cared less, so long as he could pass and punt.
Our mother died when I was 2, so I never felt her absence. She was a gram from Montgomery. Atticus met her when he was first elected to the state legislature. He was middle-aged then. She was 15 years his junior. Jem was the product of their first year of marriage. 4 years later, I was born, and 2 years later, our mother died from a sudden heart attack. They said it ran in her family. I did not miss her, but I think Jem did.